All right, so we're live. All right, Ryan, welcome to Living Off Rentals, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Kirby. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to have you here. For those who are listening, I want to just give a little bit of background. So, Ryan and I go way, way back, even though we didn't really even know each other at the time, but we tangentially were in the same spot. So I actually went to prep school in 2000, 20 years ago now, which is crazy, with Ryan's wife, Anthea. So we did a year there. And then the three of us all went to West Point together for the next 4 years, the best 4 years of our lives.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure we'd all agree on that. So what was your most vivid memory from the academy?
Graduation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that and walking a lot of hours.
Yeah, me too. I probably saw you out there.
Yeah, I probably kicked a can to you a few times.
Yeah, that was the punishment there. So you don't make your bed right, or you break some rule, and you get assigned a number of hours. So on your Saturday and Sunday, you get to dress up in full dress uniform, have a big inspection. If you fail the inspection of your uniform, then you don't even get to walk the hours. It's like a privilege to get to walk them off. You just go back to your room and you're on lockdown until you get to walk them off. And then if you pass the inspection, you just walk back and forth carrying your rifle for hours on end to pay off your penance for your crimes. So both of us, were you Century man? Did you have 100 hours? Yeah. Nice. What was your total?
Status. 120.
120. Nice. 120 hours just walking back and forth.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I think I was at like 80. I think I just avoided the Century Club. So we can talk about West Point stories all day, but I want to get into how that kind of correlates with your life today and what you're doing in real estate, because you're doing some cool things. So I guess we'll start off with kind of your background a little bit and how you transition into real estate.
Yeah, sure. So, once we finished up with our time in the Army, Ante and I moved to DC for 5 years. We worked for a government consulting company called Booz Allen Hamilton. So we were both corporate for a while. And
did you guys get married in the Army?
We did. We actually got married in Korea. Yeah.
Nice.
So that was our first duty station. And we got married in Korea so that we could be stationed together after Korea.
Nice.
So I only got Fort Carson because of Antea.
Awesome.
Yeah. So once we got out of the Army, we moved to DC, did the whole corporate thing, started looking into real estate investing, but never really pulled the trigger on anything. Then Antea got a job with HomeAway here in Austin, Texas, which is now part of Expedia. And she's from Texas originally, so we moved here. She took the job, which she actually still works at full time now. And I started doing little things. I was writing a travel blog for a little while because we both like to travel. And then back in 2017 is when we actually got to real estate investing and got our first deal under contract.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So 2017 first deal, was that a flip?
So we didn't do much wholesaling at first. That was a wholesale. We've mostly done flips and rentals. We've done, here in Texas, 2 wholesales ever. And I just happened to be one. And it's kind of funny because when we got into real estate investing, we went to one of those national real estate seminars, the ones that travel around the country.
Oh yeah.
I won't say which one, but we signed up and that didn't turn out so well.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, their company, whatever, was based in another state. They didn't really know our market, couldn't help us. But the one golden nugget we got from that was they kept pushing us to go to our local RIAs to meet people. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of really where it took off for us, is we linked up with the local RIA here in Austin. And they actually also run the RIAs in Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio also. And, we linked in with that network, and that really helped propel us to where we are today.
That's awesome. Yeah. So for those who are listening that aren't familiar with RIAs, it's a Real Estate Investors Association. And I mean, if you look up on Meetup, in any city, you're going to find a bunch of them around real estate investing. And, you can kind of even niche down now, depending on the size of the city, into rentals or flipping ones, or there's different focuses. So that's great. What was it about that propelled you? I mean, was it like you're finding deals there, or people were just motivating you, or what was the?
Yeah, it was the network, to be
Okay.
honest. We got linked up with some great coaches and mentors, some people that took us under their wing. And then because the network was so big and it was across different cities, we had access to people with all different types of backgrounds. We had title companies, attorneys, insurance agents, people that have done multiple deals before that could kind of walk us through what they've seen. So just having access to that network was huge for us, and everybody was very open with the information. So that was a huge benefit to us too.
Yeah. Yeah, that is key. I think that's underestimated by a lot of people. I work at, in my day job, I work at Bunker Labs as
Mm-hmm.
the CFO there. And, it's a nonprofit that helps veterans start businesses. And that is actually one of the biggest struggles that our community members have, is the network. And it's especially true for veterans. And they don't think about, like, they think, well, I'm going to get out, I'll move to whatever city, and they're starting from scratch, and they're really at a disadvantage when there's people who have lived there their whole lives. They know all these different people, how to get things done. So that's what we aim in Bunker Labs to try to recreate. And I think for real estate investors, RIAs are a great way to do that. That's awesome. So you did your first one 2017. What was the vision then? What was your plan?
We were just trying to, get our feet wet, get into it. We wanted to build a portfolio of rentals for
Okay.
the long term, but also mix in some flips in the short term to keep that going too, to help sustain the marketing costs and everything like that. Um, and over time, slowly, we've been able to get to that level. And, we've met some really awesome people along the way that have helped us. And, we're kind of at that point now where we're starting to help out newer investors too. So kind of the pay it forward mentality.
Yeah. So you started mostly doing flips initially, or did you jump in after that wholesale and buy a rental property?
It was a mix.
Okay.
About half the properties we've done have turned into rentals just based on the numbers
Yeah.
and how we acquired them. And, the other half turned into flips. So really we let the numbers dictate what we wanted to do as far as the exit strategy.
Okay. Yeah. And I get this question a lot from people, like, how do you determine the difference? Like, so if you're looking at a property, why would you decide to flip it as opposed to rent it?
Yeah, so we have some criteria that we look at if we want to keep it as a rental. For here in Texas, we look at properties under 200K as potential rental right off the bat. Then obviously, a lot of people look at the 1% rule as far as, the rent to value ratio. But, we also, we've dealt with a lot of stuff too. Property. We can get into that if you want, but we've been able to build a portfolio by taking over other people's mortgages that have, going to foreclosure. And the mortgage is seasoned enough that there's a good spread between the current rental rate and whatever their mortgage rate is that we're paying.
Yeah. It kind of cut out when you said it, but you said subject to, correct?
I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you could kind of break that down just a little bit more. So somebody calls you, they need to sell, and they owe less than the property's worth typically, or how, if you could break down what an ideal subject to is.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just say the property's worth 150,000. Um, Most of actually, I think all the sub twos that we've done so far have been a foreclosure situation. So the house is about to go to auction. They're behind by somewhere between usually 10 and 15,000 somewhere. So what we do in that case is instead of making a full price cash offer for the house, what we're doing is we offer to take over their mortgage payments. And what we do is we bring to the table the amount needed to make the loan current. So that 10 to 15,000. Plus, we usually provide the sellers with a little bit of money at closing too, if there's enough room in the equity. And then by that time, the mortgage is usually somewhere between 3 to 7 years old at that point, from what just the houses that we've acquired. So they've already paid down some of the mortgage. And when they bought the house, they typically bought it at a lower interest rate. So the mortgage payment is much lower than what the actual rent is now. So what we'll do is we'll take over the actual mortgage payment. Let's just say it's $800, and then we'll rent it out for $1,200, and you keep that spread, right? And then we hire property managers for our rentals because they're pretty spread out.
I see. Yeah. Yeah. I have one subject too, as well. And when I talk about this strategy, the first thing people always say is that you can't do that because the loan, in a traditional mortgage, there's a clause that says that the loan will come due if the property is transferred. So has that ever been an issue for you?
No, it hasn't. What I think we're talking about is a due on sales clause.
You want to say, yeah.
Yeah, and we bring that up with all the sellers just to let them know, hey, look, this is a potential. However, what we've noticed from other people that have talked about it is that the number one issue when it comes to that is usually how the insurance is done. And our insurance provider is an expert with how to do it in sub two and making sure that the seller is listed as an additional insured on the policy. So little stuff like that, if you forget to do it, it could raise a red flag with the lender. But if you do it correctly, there's really no risk in doing it.
Yeah.
Or the risk is mitigated.
Yeah. Yeah. I've noticed the same thing. Like there's a bank, I have yet to see a bank call a loan due that's performing. Like they're getting their payments. It's not like they're doing forensic science on where those payments are coming from. And, why would they even care where they're coming from? So if I just purchase a property, the title moves to my name and I start making the payments on that mortgage, the bank is happy. And they've been happy on the one that I have that's a sub two. And I need to talk to your insurance guy because I've just been paying for 2 insurance policies because I didn't know how to do that. And so I was like, well, his is in escrow, so it needs the insurance policy, I thought needed to stay in his name in escrow. And then I just have an insurance policy as well. And so, but I should probably figure that out because it's costing me extra money, but it's still worth it because it's a great deal.
Yeah. And like you said, lenders don't usually have an issue if the note is performing. Yeah. And part of getting a sub two is, getting the authorization from the seller to be able to contact the bank on your behalf. And then at closing, we get a limited power of attorney to be able to, like for instance, usually in the first year, you'll get that, you might get an escrow check back or something, or, an insurance policy refund, and you have the ability to endorse those checks on the seller's behalf.
Okay. Interesting. Cool. So also I want to mention if you're watching this live and you have questions as we're talking, feel free to put them in the chat there and we'll get to your questions. If I can pull it up, I'm looking at the group right now, but it's actually on the page. So let me pull up the page real quick. All right. So I want to transition into the Facebook ad strategy. So you kind of like changed my business for me about a year ago. You started doing running Facebook ads for me. I was kind of looking for a new strategy for marketing, for finding off market deals. My biggest strategy initially, and this is what I recommend to everyone, is bandit signs, which sounds very primitive and it sounds like, oh, those wouldn't work, but they work tremendously for me in the beginning. But it does take extra work. It's like when I was going out on Friday nights or hiring someone to go out on Friday nights and put up these We Buy Houses signs. And the calls that I was getting were the right calls. They were not the volume that you would get from doing mailers, but it was like everyone that calls from a bandit sign is motivated. It's like, they're the people that don't want to list their house because it's a hoarder house or they just inherited it or there's some problem or they need to just sell it like tomorrow. And so those were the people that I wanted to talk to, not the retail sellers. So bandit signs work great, but I was looking for more of an automated strategy and talk to you about Facebook ads because I know you've been doing those for a while. And I didn't think that they would be as targeted or I'd get as many motivated sellers as I have. So I appreciate it. I think it's a great strategy for others to get into. So can you kind of just give an overview of that marketing strategy, how you've used it in the past? And I think for some people, it's probably a foreign language. Like, what is a Facebook ad even? Like, how could they, adopt it into their business to start getting motivated seller leads?
Yeah, so we actually had, before we started doing real estate, or actually during when we first started the real estate, we were starting a separate business, which was like an affiliate marketing business. Um, and we took a very, very advanced Facebook course where this guy broke down the Facebook ads, like nuts and bolts of it, like why you do things a certain way. It wasn't related to real estate at all, but we took the information we learned from that course and applied it to real estate. And for those of you that have Carrot websites, I know you had Trevor on here a few weeks ago, which was an awesome interview, by the way. But he is the CEO of Carrot.com that provides websites for investors. And Carrot has a supplemental Facebook ads training on there that we took to enhance what we already understood about Facebook marketing. And I just started applying that to real estate. And you can get super targeted with Facebook ads. Most people don't know that you can actually upload an Excel sheet or a CSV into your Facebook ad account, and you can target only the people that are on that list. So Facebook will take all the data you provide and try to match that to a Facebook user profile. So you can target them with, like, say it's a foreclosure list, you can target them with very specific foreclosure messaging on Facebook because only they're going to see your ad. You can also do geographic targeting. Facebook is kind of restricted what you could do with housing ads in the past year or so, but I mean, you used to be able to target specific zip codes. Now, if you want to target geographic areas, you have to do like a minimum of 15-mile radius, which for us isn't a big deal because we're targeting entire metro areas anyway. And kind of where the gold is for Facebook marketing is, let's say you upload a foreclosure list into your account, you can create what's called a lookalike audience. So you basically tell Facebook, all right, I want you to take all the names you were able to match on that foreclosure list and find me other people on Facebook that have similar likes, interests, behaviors, internet search patterns. Because what you're doing there is you're finding other people that are potentially in a motivated situation, but they're not on anybody's list. So the competition for those leads goes way down, and you're reaching them at a very, very cheap cost per lead or cost per impression on Facebook as compared to doing mailers. So it's really helped with our marketing ability and our reach.
Yeah. And I was shocked at how targeted you could get. I mean, cause I'm like, I'm a rental property investor. I'm not like, buying in multiple states. I have a very targeted market here. I really target one city, Michigan City, which is like 30,000 people. And, and you can't get quite specific enough to be just that city, but so I'll get some leads in the surrounding area. But initially I thought, my typical seller from Bandit Signs is like, somebody like that I didn't think would be on Facebook. It's like a lot of older people and like just, I didn't know how a Facebook ad would resonate the same way that a Bandit sign would. But everyone's on Facebook. I mean, if you need proof, like just watch that Netflix documentary, Social Dilemma,
Yeah.
and you'll know that Facebook knows what you're thinking before you know what you're thinking. So it's crazy. You can use that data and get super targeted. So I guess how do people? What would you recommend like to learn about this or get going? I kind of just asked you to do it for me. I know you're kind of getting away from that a little bit. So how do you recommend people do it themselves?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of helpful YouTube videos. If you have a Carrot account, I would highly recommend doing the Facebook ads masterclass that they have on there. I think it's like $500 or something like that, but you get that back in no time.
Yeah.
Just being able to kind of crack the nut on Facebook marketing, because when you look at it, it looks foreign. There's so many different options to choose from, and Facebook is notorious for always changing buttons, where they place stuff, and rolling out different things without announcing it. So it's constant like upkeep too. So it's not like you can just set it and forget it. It's always monitoring and seeing how the ads account looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Carrot. I mean, I felt bad when I interviewed Trevor because he's the CEO of Carrot, and I've like tapped into like probably 5% of the stuff they offer. It's just an amazing site, and I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid to say that, but it's helped my business a lot. It's basically the best website out there for real estate investors, and it's designed specifically to talk to motivated sellers. And they have SEO training, they have Facebook ads training, they have a ton of information to where, you can, some of this stuff like Facebook ads, there's like a lot of tangential benefits as well. I've had people contact me, they see a Facebook ad. There's this guy, a young guy, like 20 years old, in the reserves, and he's like, I work construction between my time in the reserves, and I'm looking for a job, and he never would have reached out if you hadn't been running Facebook ads, or different people with different opportunities that aren't even necessarily related to motivated sellers too. And it's just because you're getting in front of so many people that you wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to. So I'm a big advocate. So you've bought a lot of rentals over the years, and this channel specifically is focused on rental property investing. So I'm always curious when I talk to people. Everyone has a different algorithm for how they determine what a good rental is. What is it that you look for when you're buying rentals, and how do you determine that it's a good deal?
I mean, the first thing we look at is price point. Is it in the neighborhood that we want to buy? Usually under 200K.
Okay.
And I would go so far as to say under 175K also.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be in an appreciating neighborhood. So what we do is we kind of look at the property values over the past 3 to 5 years and see what they've done. Are they stagnant? Do they increase? Do they decrease? At what percentage? So if it's in an appreciating neighborhood, then absolutely, that's what we look for. And then, we kind of look at how much work is needed too. Like I said before, like our primary rental strategy is acquiring sub two. But to give you an example of one that we didn't get sub two, we're actually working on it right now. It's up in Abilene, Texas. This was a full-on hoarder house. And you couldn't even see the floor.
Hoarders.
Oh yeah, you couldn't even see the floor. So I made a judgment call. Based on the square footage of the house, I was able to kind of estimate about how much it would take to rehab the house. So I made an offer, a cash offer, and Abilene's interesting. We've never bought a property in Abilene before until this one, but it has an Air Force base there and it has a college there. And so that's another thing we look at when buying a rental is what are the job opportunities like there? What's the market like? Those are the main factors that go into deciding whether or not we're going to keep it or get rid of it.
Got it. Yeah. And what type of cash flow are you typically looking at on those?
Honestly, that varies.
Okay.
A lot of people, they say, I need a minimum of $200 cash flow. For us, I mean, as long as we're positive, if it's in a highly, highly appreciating area, we're okay with making a smaller amount of cash flow per month, but gaining that appreciation yearly. So I know some people are very stuck on cash flow. We're not. We kind of look at both pieces of the puzzle, and if it's appreciating very, very much, then we're okay with lesser cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. Both are definitely important. So that's great. You mentioned hoarder houses. I like to point out to people, it's interesting because I think when you're first getting started, you think all ugly houses are the same. And I love hoarder houses and I love inherited houses compared to what a lot of people target is foreclosures. And the difference, if you're a rehabber, or understand rehabbing, the difference typically is massive in terms of cost from what I've seen over the years. Doing, probably done 120 rehabs at this point, and the ones that are foreclosures, they're just beat up. Like everything's beat up. Like people who are going into foreclosure don't spend money on the expensive stuff. Like they are really on anything, but they'll let the furnace go out. They might be heating their house with the stove or something. They just run everything into the ground, as opposed to a lot of times with, especially inherited houses, but even hoarder houses as well. People will, like if a house that's completely outdated, looks like 1960 inside, the people who are living there were happy with that. They liked 1960 furnishings, but they were like meticulous about maintaining the furnace, and the roof is brand new and the windows were replaced, and all these things that are like the costly stuff in a rehab. Those things were all taken care of, but you walk in and it looks the same almost as a foreclosure because it's just all outdated and kind of worn down on the cosmetics. So, but the cost to rehab it is night and day difference. So, you typically get those for about the same price, but the rehab cost is a lot different. And the hoarder houses are similar. The clean out is the cheapest part. It's just paying for dumpsters and some laborers to clean it all out, and then you got a fresh canvas to start with. So that's cool. I'm excited to see how that one turns out for you.
Yeah, we should be done with that one by the end of the month. So
awesome.
Yeah,
nice.
We're pretty pumped about that. It already looks night and day from when we first bought it.
Yeah, post the before and after pictures in the.
Oh, I definitely will. Yeah.
Cool. So you guys are kind of transitioning, pivoting a little bit in your business. Still, still doing rentals. I'm sure you probably do flips if they make sense. But you've been really focused over the last month on setting up this new business. Can you tell me about this new business?
Yeah, sure. So just to preface that real quick, so we're still working on our rental and flip business here in Texas. That's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still going to be doing that, but we also kind of branched out with another arm now, where we are doing nationwide virtual wholesaling now. So taking what we talked about with the Facebook ads, instead of targeting a specific city or state, I am targeting the entire United States on Facebook, and the leads come in from wherever they come in. So that's kind of the cool part about it, is we never know where the next lead is going to come from or where the next contract is going to come from. So this has been really exciting. I think we started 3 weeks ago. We've already got, it's interesting. I was telling you a little bit about this before, but the Midwest has been kind of a hotbed for us right now. It's a lot of leads and a lot of motivated sellers. We actually have 2 properties under contract in Iowa. We have another verbal agreement for one in Louisville, Kentucky, and we have a follow-up with a Missouri seller today, who came back to us after we made her an offer already. So,
nice.
So it's
Can't wait
been
till you
going
get
well.
Indiana.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. So
that's awesome.
the thing is, yeah. And so at the same time, we're currently building a nationwide buyers list. So we have a website set up where you can enter in your information and, whatever state or states you're interested in investing in, including the option of all 50. And then whenever a property gets, we get one under contract that we're going to dispo, we shoot it out to, the people that said they were interested in that state.
That's great. I did a video on active income and passive income.
Still in the brain, huh?
Jeez. It's beat into you, active income and passive income, and how important it is to have both in your real estate investing business. Because I think a lot of people are like, they have these dreams of owning a rental portfolio, and so they quit their job to buy a rental portfolio, and they realize like they can't feed themselves, even though they might have $1 million in equity in these properties. They could literally be millionaires and starving because they can't tap into it because they can't get the financing or whatever. So you've got to have that flow of income for your day-to-day bills and expenses, and to continue to invest in your company, and then at the same time be building the rental property portfolio. So I think it's really cool that you're branching out into this new strategy, and it's using what you've already learned through Facebook ads. You know, you're not reinventing the wheel here. You're just kind of expanding on it. So how does this work? Like, I assume that you don't know anyone in Iowa who, you know, is like your boots on the ground person. So when you get a lead from Facebook in Iowa and you're in Texas, what's your next steps?
Yeah. So our next step is, the good thing about the Facebook marketing also is that when sellers come to you, they're coming to you. There's no angry calls. There's no, take me off your list. It's, they're coming to you. So that's a nice thing. So the first thing I'll do is I'll map it out, see where the property is. If it's in a small town, not near anything, we call that a non-usable lead. So what we'll do is we'll email them back and say, hey, look, I'm sorry, we're outside of your coverage area, but here are some other options for you. If it's near a bigger city or a metro area, or, like a feeder city, something like that, then we'll start running the numbers, kind of get an idea of what the situation is, talk to the seller, and then sometimes we'll just have an introductory call. Right now, actually, Anthea is the one that's doing all the seller calls. And so she's like our acquisitions manager right now.
She's friendlier than you.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. No, she's been awesome at doing it so far, because she's been kind of removed from our Texas business because she still works full time, but she's kind of taken on that role with this new business and doing great at it. So she'll talk to the sellers, and depending on the feel you get from talking that first conversation, we either make the offer right there on the spot, or we'll say, hey, look, we need to come back to you on a later call. And then we'll figure out what our offer is going to be. We'll make the offer and start the negotiation process. If we get under contract, then we have a transaction coordinator here based out of Texas, but they are familiar with working nationwide. So they'll open title for us, handle all the paperwork. So it allows us to handle the acquisition for another property, and as well as the dispo for this current property. So, and as far as boots on the ground, there's different resources that we have access to, like with the West Point Real Estate Network. They're everywhere, and everybody's willing to lend a hand there. So we reach out to that network. I join all the local Facebook groups for every state, or as many as I can, seeing if anybody can, go take a drive by the property, or, put a lockbox on the house for us or something like that. So there's plenty of ways to reach out to people. You have Thumbtack, Craigslist. There's different resources you can use when you don't have to be there.
So initially, when you're putting the offer in and getting it under contract, you typically have not had anyone walk through the property yet. It's based on just their description of what needs to be done.
Their description, and we'll also have them send us some basic pictures of the house.
Nice.
Just to verify the stuff. When it comes to dispoing the property, we'll start with those pictures up front. But what we like to do, what part of our process is hiring somebody in the area that can do the 3D Matterport walkthrough. Mm-hmm. Especially right now, a lot of sellers that are still living at the house, they don't want a lot of people in and out of the house, right? Yeah. They don't want people near them right now. So what we do is we just hire the photographer to do that one photo shoot. And if you've seen the Matterport 3D walkthroughs before, they're incredible. It's like walking through the actual house. You get a full 3D rotation, top to bottom, and you get an exact feel for the layout of the house and what needs to be done. So that really helps with the dispo portion of the transaction as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, it almost like it kind of forces you to be more efficient. Like I'm thinking about it with my business. I usually just target local leads, and so I think like to last week, I went out and met with this guy who I thought it was going to be a deal, and he was more looking for a friend than to sell a property. And so we had a long conversations about a lot of stuff. I ate pears from his pear tree in the backyard. And then, and it took a lot of time, where it was in the evening and I wasn't home with the family. And I could have been And, it could have saved me all that time had I just said, like, send me the pictures, tell me like what you're looking for the house, and then I do my analysis, and then I send it back. And so, because initially, like, he kind of described it, and I thought, well, it's in better shape than it actually was. It was really rough, and I would have been able to see that from the pictures. So, so I think it's like a handicap in some regard to be close by. You are forced to figure out this efficient system by being removed, which is kind of cool. So
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And even here in Texas now, we're starting to kind of pull back from going on every appointment and, seeing every house. And it just, especially because we target multiple cities here, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. I'm based out of Austin, so that's a lot of miles on the road, a lot of time spent that I could be home or working on other things. So yeah, you're right, absolutely right. Definitely forces you to be more efficient and create processes within your business.
cool. Well, I have just a few final questions here. So, this one I kind of sometimes I hesitate to ask it because I feel like it gives people an excuse somewhat, because I think people are they're subconsciously or consciously looking for reasons why this isn't going to work for them. And so, I have a lot of military people on just because that's kind of my network.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always curious to know if there's something that, that you learned at West Point or in the military that you think has led to your success. And also, I guess, what others who haven't had that same experience, how could they replicate that lesson or that skill set? Because I think it's easy for people to listen to this and then say, well, I can't do it because I didn't go to West Point, or I didn't serve in the military. But is there something that you can point to that you think is that's been beneficial for you in real estate?
Um, the first thing that comes to mind for me is time management. Um, at West Point military, you really have to be efficient with your time. And so when I'm evaluating a property, I try not to go down too many rabbit holes, or, I just try to get to the point, make it as efficient as possible, get on to the next task. And, at the end of the day, and I think something that helped also on top of that from our military and West Point experience is that whatever's happening in real estate, isn't as bad as being in a war zone, or, so things are not as bad as you think they are.
Yeah.
So it puts perspective into what we're doing. It was tough for us at first because it took us like 8 months to get our first deal. We got a lot of no's. And so the persistence really stayed with us. And for anybody that's new out there, just a little tidbit: don't become a motivated buyer. Because I've seen it happen to too many people where they're so excited to get that first deal, they'll just say yes. And then they get in over their head, they lose money, and then they never do it again. So I'd say persistence, time management, and perspective are a couple of things that I can think of right off the bat.
That's such great advice about being a motivated buyer. I've heard so many new people say, well, I know this isn't a deal, but it's going to give me the experience that I need to understand this. And you can get the experience on a good deal and make a bunch of money at the same time. So don't lose money just to get the experience. It's a lot more painful.
Right.
It's great advice. So if people are listening, I think there's a lot of rental property investors who listen to this show specifically, and they are probably buyers of the properties that you're putting under contract. So if they want to join your buyers list, what's the best way to do that?
If you go to our website at goldvethomesellers.com, there's a form right on the front page there. You can join our buyers list. You just enter your email. Phone is optional, only for texting. And then you can choose what state or states you're interested in. And also on that website, you can see what properties we currently have for sale.
Awesome. Sounds good. I'll be watching for those Northwest Indiana properties to come through. So.
All right.
Cool. Well, any last piece of advice or any words of wisdom for the community here?
Yeah, just stay persistent. Keep at it. You might get a lot of no's, especially at first, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Once that first deal, and I heard this from people before we got our first deal, they kept telling us, "Hey, once that first deal happens, it's going to open the floodgates." And I'm like, "Okay," but it did. Um, it actually did.
Yeah.
So keep at it. Stay persistent, and um, once that first one comes in, you'll get the experience you need and keep moving forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you spending the time today.
Yeah, Kirby, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.